met John on a summer vacation, and I was on a trip with my friend. We had met in college, and the opportunity worked out, and I met her, and we circled around Europe, and then came back up to Kaiserslautern, and that was where she introduced us. In 70 to 71, and he was an XO in a battalion at the time. And then the next time, from 75 to 77, he was the first of the 84th Battalion Commander. And then we came back in 87 to 89, and he was the Division Commander now. And had wonderful people, and that was when when we got there, everybody knew how to say the name, because the Chief of Staff said, "Hey guys, Dolly, gosh, really. Like Shalikashvili. Shali like Dolly, Kosh like gosh, Vili like really." And the people in the division never faltered on saying it's not Shalikashvili, it's Shalikashvili. So that was really kind of fun. Tommy Steiner was the one who decided to do that. And my son and I went over to Europe with the idea that if he's confirmed, and if he isn't, Brant and I are going to drive around Europe. So the day before he was due to be over for the Yukon change of command, he was confirmed and promoted. So his brother was there to be able to pin that extra star on him, which I think was really very, very appropriate. And I pinned a number of things on him, and that was, Brant and I were really comfortable with our decision of not being there at that time. And then I was on my way to the airport to go to the West Coast, and got a phone call in the car. And this voice said, "Hi there, Joan." And I said, "I recognize your voice." It was the president. And he said, "I'm bringing you back to Washington." I'm in jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm heading west. And so he said, "You could come in your blue jeans, And I said, "No, that's okay." Years later, when we were at a dinner at the White House, I said, "I'm running out of clothes to wear to your house for dinner." And he said, "You could always wear your jeans." That was years later. That man still remembered that comment. And it was a completely different world. All of the nurses who were with him were so good. They worked with him all day and night. We were able to stay in the room. There were beds there for my son and me. That was the closest I had been to my husband in probably 4 years, because I couldn't sleep with him when he first had his stroke, because the caregivers were in there all during the night, and my privacy, I couldn't do that. And then he moved at some point to Patriots Landing. Why? I'll never really know why. I think maybe, I don't know whether it was for my sake or because he felt more independent there. We never really were able to figure out what that was. But anyway, so that was the closest I had been to John. I could sleep every night holding his arm and all. And so it was just so great. And having my son there, and we could have people come up, but if we didn't want somebody to come, they wouldn't let them in. And they were very good about guarding our privacy and all. We cried a lot, and we laughed a lot, and John could hear all of that going on. We met a doctor who has the most beautiful voice, and she sang at his memorial. She was one of the doctors he'd had, and she sang at his memorial and went back to DC and sang at his funeral. And she's still a doctor with the military. They didn't even know that they had a singing doctor on the staff. And then along in there, funny little things would happen. My sister was visiting, and she noticed the licensed practical nurse, the young gentleman, Don. Well, what she didn't realize is Don is Department of Nursing. She thought his last name was Don. So pretty soon she says, "Don's mother's here." It was a nurse, same last name, Don. And I said to my sister, "How would you know that? You don't even know this fellow." But this young fellow was, when he was 12 years old, he was a scout. And John was in Germany, and he was over the Boy Scouts. And so he had met this young gentleman one day, and they were talking, and John said, "Just call me John." So a couple days later, they were in a line for food. And the little boy saw John, and his father, a sergeant, was there. Could have been a sergeant major, I don't know. Anyway, and the little boy said, "Hi, John." And the father almost died. And he said, he told me to call him John. That's how John was. But it was really cute. But this young fellow is now a licensed practical nurse in Madigan. And he's telling us this story when he was 12 years old. That was probably 20-something years before. But I just found out today from Diane that he came, after John died, he came to them and asked if he could prepare his body for the casket. That was really something, you know. So John was impacting people's lives all during the thing. But if the palliative care hadn't been there, we would have had to move him to somewhere. He wouldn't have known where it was. I might have known where it was. Might have known of it, but my son wouldn't have been there. There wouldn't have been beds for us. There wouldn't have been people coming in constantly, taking care of him, talking so softly they never woke us, regulating the medicine that, well, he was no longer on medicine to keep him alive. It was just, like they'll give you water, but they don't do all the other things. It was so peaceful. It was such a nice way to see somebody that you love really a lot die, And I know that Brant felt the same way. One of his speech therapists had spent the night. She said, I just had a feeling something was going wrong. But that next morning, one of the caregivers, Catherine, neat lady, all his caregivers were great. She came in and she said, she was dressed in her coat, and I said, oh, she woke me and I said, oh, you're leaving? And she said, no, it's just a little chilly in here because they keep the room pretty chilly. And she said, but I need to turn your husband. And I said, okay. And she said, well, his arm, his paralyzed arm, is in your bed. I have no idea how it got there. And afterwards, and I didn't know at the time, his knees seemed so cold, and I said, Catherine, we need to pull up the blanket. He's so cold. I didn't realize at that time he was dying, and he wasn't ever going to get warm again. But anyway, so I talked to Dr. Flynn later on, and I said, when people die, does the paralysis go away? And he said, well, there are medical ways you could look at this, but I think it's a spiritual thing, and I like this. I think he was reaching out to you, and I have loved that idea, and I really do think that was probably true, But it wouldn't have been like that anywhere but in a palliative care ward, and I can't say enough about them. There are not enough words to express how meaningful that was to us. And the thing was, when we had people coming in with us, they could see it. And all they could do if they weren't military was think, gee, wouldn't it be great if we could have something like that someday? And I don't like public speaking, but I will do anything I can to promote palliative care being a thing that will be permanent in the military hospitals. This is, if I talk to them personally, I'd say, do not hesitate 1 minute in choosing to do this. It was such a comforting way to have him die. And that room was like a home to us. It really was. We could bring in things that we wanted to. We had pictures in the room, and now they have a little display case that people can put things in. We had a microwave in there. We just made it our place. And they did everything they could to make that possible for us. There's a shower there. You could spend the night. You can get cleaned up the next day. It was just wonderful.